Yo, what's up, ninjas? And welcome to the complete guide to master Serum 2. Okay, now in the first episode, we went over the wavetable oscillators. There's a couple of things we missed that I do want to touch on real quick. The first one being that if you ever have a wavetable that, for example, this default shapes, where you want it to smoothly transfer between the flavors, the sounds that you are provided, so that you can add movement or do some funky stuff, you can always right-click on the wavetable position knob and create smooth interpolation. This will make it so that, let's say we play a saw, we can smoothly crossfade between all of them. The other thing we forgot to mention here is in the pitch oscillator, if you've ever wanted to know how it feels like to do Eurosynths, right? The fancy stuff, the guys that are obsessed with plugging holes, not in the way that most of us do, but you know, they like plugging holes in their own way. Then you can do something they do, which is when they have an oscillator, they don't have a pitch track. They have to connect the hole to get the pitch track. For us, we can do this, which allows us to just play this oscillator at any key and it won't change in pitch. The reason you might want to do something like this is just because you're looking at this more as from a sound design perspective of creating drones, of creating cool things. For example, one thing these guys do that sometimes feels a little hard with these synths that we have here, like Serum 2, is they'll do these crazy drone-like sounds, but many people don't realize that you can play a lot of these wavetables at very low volumes. Look at that. And you can hear the movement. Very low frequency where we can hear the movement, the in-between of the sound. And sometimes we can get really cool. Set to unison. So look at that. Like if I was doing sound design for Jurassic Park, I would probably go somewhere down here. Find the right wavetable. Maybe a little. Okay, so that's why we might want to do something like that. Not to say that you can't just do it here. Right? But this is how I would create those atmospheres. Like this. Let's say for some reason, you know, like, but with that being said, let's get into the good stuff, the new stuff, the multi-sample and the sample section of Serum 2, which is going to allow you to play samples. Let's say you buy a sample pack, like one of mine's, let's say, and there's a nice synth shot in there. You're like, I like this. I want to use it, but I want to process it with Serum. Then this is for you. To access these new features, you just click on the wavetable and then you get the sub menu where you can dive into these guys. So we'll start with the multi-sample. Now, multi-sample is super clutch. I've been using it to create these instruments for you guys in some of the preset packs if you haven't noticed. But now I can go to my analog synths. I can record multiple hits of a sound I created on them at C3, at a low octave, at a mid octave, at a high. So that way, as you play it, for instance, here I have this one called Avicii Lives. You can see that if I play a low key, I'm playing more down here. And if I go to the middle, this is moving up here. Now, if I click here, you're going to see the sample. It's a blob. But as I move, you can see that the sample changes. So a multi-sample instrument is going to allow us to play or pretty much create something that is made up of multiple samples. And from there, we need to program a text file, which is known as a .sfc, in order to let Serum 2 know what notes pertain to what sample. Okay, so for example, I just did this goddamn preset for Minimal Nights 3, which was a pain in the butt. Right, so for this, I had to sample a Hammond B3, just like the original song. And from there, I created a multi-sample of different hits here. Okay, so again, I had to do that with a SFC file. Now, the way that this works, I'm going to bring up my folder real quick. You can see here multi-sample patches. Essentially, here I have all of the recordings that I've had for my synths. So, for instance, for the Moga or the OB6 Wiggle Wiggle bass, I recorded at B0, B1, B2, B3, C0, C1, C2, C3. Usually going from like C to E to G, you know, you decide how you want it. You could go from C1 to C2 to C3, or you can get very specific. But from there, you need to create this file, this .sfc called Visual Studio Code. You can use this in order, like for instance, here I created this guy. you can use this to tell it, program it so that Serum will see it. So for example, here I have this .sfc file, which is pretty much just going to give you this here. Now I use ChatGPT to help me do this. Thank God for chat. There's also automators out there that people have created for you to do this if you ever choose to do it. For me as a sound designer that's providing sounds for some of the top producers out there, and when I say that, I mean you, of course, is it's allowing me, it's giving me the ability to use my analog synths, which I only use for sample creation and for jamming out in a fun, different way than using software. But now I can create sounds on them, grab the characteristics of the synths, and again, as you saw, boom, and provide sounds for them to create stuff like this. So now Serum's going to provide you with a factory, collection of sounds they've created. So the bass pick palm. Now Serum cares more than I do because as you can see, there's multiple rows here. So what that means is that this SFC file is velocity sensitive. So what velocity is how hard a note is hit. If you have a MIDI keyboard, like for instance, I'm rocking this one here. If I play soft, it sounds like that. But if I play hard, it sounds like that. You can feel it. The intensity increases. So they recorded some dude with probably long hair on a guitar playing really softly, so now that they told Chat, or they programmed it into the SFC file saying, okay, this is the soft hit. And then they also programmed and recorded again, multiple different takes at different intensities. And you get a multi-sample instrument that sounds like this. It sounds very lively. Okay, so in the factory, you're going to be able to find all kinds. You have the choir. So if you're making techno, right, like you can create a nice lead out of this with put effects on it super nicely. There's drums here, like the 909, where each key will play like each drum. Again, the Serum 2 went from being a synth to a super synth in a sense, and a super sampler. This is all cool stuff. I don't know if I would use it, but you have access to it, and it's good to know just in case you ever just want to be cheap. Instead of eating cup of noodles, you don't buy that sample pack and then just use this, so that way you have money to go to Starbucks or something, get yourself a nice little chicken popper. Those things go bomb. All right, some settings to understand. Obviously, we have our pitch, which is going to work very similar to the wavetable oscillators. But now we have here this little envelope that we can come in, and we can override the envelope that the original creator of this multi-sample instrument inputted. So with an SFC file, you can also tell it how you want each of these samples to play in terms of envelopes. So with this, you can override it. To have it play the way you want coming out of this. Okay. And this is useful because if I have another sound, like a saw, but I want the saw not to be like punchy. Let's say I want this to just be punchy and then the saw comes in. Then I can do it this way. Okay. So we'll talk about what all of this is, by the way, in the envelope section. But for now, just know you can do this. Usually I won't override it though, unless it's needed for sound design purposes. Okay. From there, we have our velocity tracking here. So this is the velocity sensitivity. Okay, let's say I'm playing here at 60. This velocity track, the sensitivity of the velocity. Key thing to note with velocity 2 is a lot of the times it will control the volume. So notice if I hit very soft, now the volume goes down. From here we have the rand, and it's just the starting point of this. Do you want to randomize it? Is it always going to start at the beginning? Here I'm playing this, but you can see that it's not starting as fast. But here we let it be. From there, we have timbre, which is gonna change the order that the notes are played. So for example, right now, let's say I'm playing at C3. While I'm using the top notes, the right notes that Steve Duda programmed in that SFC file. But if I use timbre and I go higher up, you can see I start to use these lower samples to get a brighter response. But at the same time, this sounds a little bit, unnatural, right? So the way you use this is, again, you can definitely brighten the sample, because what this is doing is it's grabbing the slow ones, the low samples, and speeding them up. And usually when you speed up really low pitch samples, which increases the way they sound, the frequency, they tend to sound a lot more unnatural. Just keep that in mind, because one of the strengths of multi-sample is that you don't have to sound unnatural, because you're recording the samples at different octave ranges. Okay. From there, we also have a unison for this, which is going to stack these sounds. So usually I'll use this to make a guitar sound like it has a chorus, for example. Sound like Nirvana. But the other key thing here is, like, if I hit this, you're going to see that I can also play with the width, the ramp phase, the range. Like before, we can stack like before, we can change the way it works like before. We can have the warp change here. So if we add a filter, we can have some of these sounds. Fat as fuck. The sample will only use one. So usually I'm using a sample if I want to sample or grab a sample and play it through Serum. So for example, another thing that I like to do for these, I'll do the more old school route. For instance, I'm working on Minimal Nights Volume 3 at the moment for you guys. So I've been creating stabs with these guys, mainly this guy here, the OB6. Okay. The thing is, I only have one sample, right? So the problem with samples like this, compared to the multi-sample, is that it's only one. So if I play really high, it sounds weird. And you can see that the sample plays a lot quicker versus lower, plays a lot slower. So as you do this, it sounds like a PlayStation startup, man. What the hell? Hire me, Sony. There are a few more settings with the sample that we can use, and there's a couple more ways to mangle the sound. Okay, so the first thing we have here is a start. So we can choose where we start the sample at. Sometimes this is useful because the beginning part, right, doesn't sound as good or smooth as these parts, okay? The next thing is we have the end point. So if I'm not looping the sample, below here, we have the loop modes. All right, so one shot mode, just play it, boom, done. And we have the forward loop, where we can set a loop now here. Sounds really cool. Play the sound and it reaches and it just keeps looping forward. Also have a reverse loop, and then just reverses and just keeps reversing. I also have it going forward and reverse inside this blue circle. You can do a lot of cool stuff with that. Look at that. Then we have the tailed. This one's interesting because it reaches the end and then it reverses and just stays at the end. And then it's going to go back and forward, and then it's just going to slowly get quiet over time. There it goes. There it goes. Below that, we have stuff that will affect the loop. Okay, so for instance, we have the relative loop. So if I choose to go with a forward reverse loop, relative loop, it's going to make it so that the loop moves with the start point. From there, we have the link loop length. So for this, I'm going to right click and I'm going to show marker animation. So as I move this, see that the loop stays the same. Okay, if I have that off, I believe. You can see I can automate that, move it, and it stays the same. And then we have exit loop on release. Play something. Let's have release. Boom, let go. It's going to continue down its journey. One more time. Boom, we're in there. Let go of the note. And it gets out of the loop. And they become useful because, for instance, the relative loop and the link loop length, if I'm ever modulating this guy here, stays the same versus if I have this off. Look at that. That's weird. Okay. So here we go. Stays the same. From there, I can also right click here and I can snap to 0, snap to beat, snap to loop. This is all going to have to deal with as I'm moving this guy. Snaps, boom, to the beat, snaps to 0. I think I have to have a loop for this one. Just right click on the sample and normalize it. So if the sample isn't at max amplitude, you increase the volume of the sample until the peaks hit the top. Reverse the audio sample. Okay. Trim it. So for instance, if I do this, I'm going to trim. Bam! Get out of here. Then we have slicing, auto, and manual. So now if I play a key, each key is going to pertain to a section of the sample. So here I'm playing, let's say C1. Starting here. Let's get rid of this. So similar to Ableton Sampler slice mode, I can also set manual control on the slices. To make some of the shots be longer, I can input new ones by holding Option and clicking. For instance, here I want to get rid of some Option click, so that way I have bigger gaps. Then we have some options here. Play slice to end. If I play a slice, right, we've hit it, and instead of it ending, it's going to continue towards the end of the sample. Set the root note. So for instance, we can have it be higher up. Sometimes when we slice stuff up, you know, like C0 to C2 is usually the range for many of them. But here we can change that so that when we play C3, we play here, C sharp. Instead of having it be starting at C1, C2. You can also right click and send to the selected clip, which will put it here in one of these clips. Similar to Ableton, when you have something get sliced or put it into a sampler, it's going to play the loop in its entirety. Send to selected clip. Boom. From here, we can activate play single slice, and you can like play it during pitch, but now how do you switch between the different slices? Well, just got to move this guy. Have this set like in a macro, which will tell it to move. We can go oscillator A, and we can modulate slice play mode or the single slice. Set that range. I'm going to move this here. We'll get into this stuff, by the way, later on. I know we're hitting it, but it's just one of the features that this thing has. Now, if we click on the scan, scan is the rate at which the sample is played. So usually, like we've talked about before, frequency is dependent on the speed of a sample. So we can increase the speed and we can decrease it. If we go below 0, we reverse it. We can also right click and reverse it. So that way it's almost the inverse now. It's like someone's moving vinyl. Lock scan rate to tempo. If the tempo is increased, so will the sample be the scan is off and I do it again. It doesn't do that, so you can lock it to the tempo if needed. Now we have sample length to BPM, which pretty much selects the length of the sample based on the BPM. So now we have a bar, 1/2, 1/4, Demonic. Now in sample mode, we are going to have some differences when it comes to the unison mode. For example, here I can add unison, stack the sound. All right, but if I click this here, you're going to see that I can alter the starting point of each. Instead of having them all start together, they can each start at different positions of the sample, each of the voices as I detune. Okay, so that's going to be unique to just the sample. Instead of like the multi-sample doesn't let you do that. We can stack. We're going to have, again, the different modes we discussed already. We're going to have the span. So if I move, where in the sample are we starting? So you're localizing a center point on the sample for the phase, for the timing of where everything starts. So using combination with this ahead. One key thing to note here is also with the forward reverse loop. If we ever wanted to do this, you can hear how this is kind of a little too sudden. So now I can use this here to apply a crossfade to just make it sound a lot smoother. Before, you can hear there's this, but now smoother. So it's good for that. Gets into the loop and you can't even tell. It's super cool for that. Right click, normalize this one, make it a little louder. Keep in mind, you can also use some of the warps like the filter and distortion on this, but as you distort it, you're not going to see that what's happening to the waveform. And then we'll discuss these bottom ones once we get to them in a future episode. All right, cool. So we've gone over most of the stuff with the sample and the multi-sample. So now let's make some sounds with them. So one of the things I sometimes like to do for these packs is combine organic sounds with inorganic sounds. So for example, I'm going to go with a multi-sample and create a bass by using the tone of a real bass guitar. Now, the reason that I might choose to do this, let's say I like the tone of this here, but it doesn't have enough low end. And I don't want to play here. All right, sounds too deep. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to C3 range on my keyboard. I'll lower down the octave to where I like the tone. Okay. From there, I'm going to use oscillator B, and I'm going to use one of the basic shapes, either a sine or triangle. Lower the octave. -3 to beef it up. And use as a bass for a house track. Okay, so this is one way of using a combination of the wavetable with the multi-sample. Obviously, with multi-sample, you can just use any of these as you please. For example, we can have the piano. Say I'm playing chords. Maybe play with this if we need to, but it doesn't seem like we need to. Detune. Get the piano sounding Western now. Come. The way we play it, though, is very important. Velocity track. Trying to see if I can change the starting point. Okay, it doesn't seem like it, so we're gonna use a wavetable. Go digital probably over the analog ones for now. And let's use something that will add some nice... I'm gonna add some reverb from Ableton. I'm not cheating there, just it's needed. So here I can have the grand piano, the baby grand, and a wavetable playing together. Let's find a better one. Okay, I can also use the filters now. Remove some of the Lows. Have this sound be more up top. Okay, I'm gonna use this quick little hack in Ableton to create expressive chords, just to play some really dope chords. Let's also add some low pass here too. There's more in the back. Those are a little too fancy for me. 7. There we go. So now we combine the piano with a nice saw. Alright, we use these here. Let's see if we add then tune into the piano. One unison, seeing how that sounds. I mean, it sounds great. Right? We're not even, well, we have a bit of reverb and delay, but it sounds really good. But just another great sound, I think, are the marimbas. You know, a lot of people in reggaeton use that. The mallets, those are really cool. We could try this. I'm gonna put this at 15. A little bit unison. Let's randomize a bit. Okay. Now we can add what I like is the FM ones. Back in the day, we would make these botanical sounds. Add a bit of wavetable. Lower this. And now, again, we use the shit out of this filter, don't we? High pass. I wonder if one of these will help. Nope. We're gonna add that little flavor. So marimbas are nice. I wouldn't really do a lot with them, but let's say that you wanted to keep things organic, you know, and you don't want to spend $200 on UV stuff and go grab another sound like maybe a piano to layer with the marimba. Ah, Lord have mercy. So usually when I'm layering sounds, you know, I'm trying to fill in something that might be missing from the other one, which honestly a marimba doesn't really need anything. But if I wanted more high frequencies on it, and I still want to play it at that range, I could either increase the voicing, right? Or I could have another sound that can provide the high frequencies like here. Now here, just to get creative, in fact, maybe I'll go, okay, I'm gonna go sample instead so I can loop the piano and get like a really nice reverse. So I'm gonna go piano. By the way, this is just thinking on the spot. When you know your tools and you get comfortable and you know everything you can do, right? It helps to kind of be able to do that. You go like, I want to do something like this. Now you can do it. You don't have to figure it out. Then you can stay in flow, move fast. So I'm gonna do this. Unison up. I think it sounds delicious. Needs to be louder. And lower now. And now this can be here. Just put some delay. Ableton one, not Serum. Up. And now let's add a unison stack sound with a 7th in there for fun. I don't know if it's gonna sound good, but you won't know unless you try. Okay, mono the crap out of it here. My word. I'm gonna use the filter now to remove this. Now we have this. Okay, that's fucking sexy. Let's increase the start here. So it starts at different spots. This is how Steve intended. Since they're all starting at a different position, now we get a little bit more beauty there. Okay, cool. All right, guys. So someone knocked on my door, which means I gotta go eat. So sadly, our time has come to an end. So by now, you should know how to use the wavetable oscillator, the sample, and the multi-sample. As you saw, we can create very beautiful sounds with just that stuff alone. I did cheat a little bit and use the Ableton reverb and delay, but you know, what life's worth living without reverb and delay? Make sounds with just those elements you have there. If you want, you can follow the sounds I'm making, and hopefully that will lead you down your own path of discovery. Follow along if you want on the sound design session. Make it your own. You know, maybe you hear something else. Maybe you think, oh, the piano idea was cool, but fucking string. Or maybe the vocal one would have been sicker, right? So try out stuff, play with the tools. That's how you're going to cement your knowledge. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow again for another complete guide to master Serum. This has been episode 2. If you guys want to support the channel, you can head over to EvoSounds.com. You can find all my sound design work. You guys take care, and you guys have a great rest of your day.